Well, how's it going? Marty from Anna's Anchor here, and welcome to week 3 of DIY IRL, the 32-week project where I'm interviewing a different person from a different county in Ireland each week that has in some way taken a DIY independent approach to their chosen vocation. As you know, I'm also writing and recording a new song each week, and this week's tune is called Plastic Chairs, which you can find at the end of the episode. I wanted to do something a little bit different and mad this week, so I tried to write a country-ish sounding song. So not sure if I succeeded with that, but maybe if you stick around till the end of the episode, you can find out for yourself and let me know. So once again, I want to thank everyone for all the kind words over the last week in relation to the episodes that we had with Ray from the Barras and the previous episode with John. I really hope you've enjoyed the episode so far, and it has been great to get a bit of feedback and chat away on Twitter afterwards. So if there's anything you did or didn't enjoy with the series so far, feel free to hit me up at Annas_anchor. Moving on to this week's guest, I decided to bend my own rules a little bit, which is perfectly fine because I set them, so I can do whatever the feck I want really. This week's guest is Seán Huber, who is an ancestral representative of Roscommon for this week. So Seán himself, he lives in Philadelphia in America, but his family originates from Roscommon. Most people will know Seán as either the singer and songwriter, the frontman of Steady Hands, or the drummer of Modern Baseball. I was absolutely delighted to have Seán on as a guest, as he's gotten to experience a level in music that most of us kind of dream of getting to. The history of Modern Baseball and I suppose Seán's musical career has been fairly well documented, so I kind of wanted to focus on what it was like working and being a part of a band of the size that Modern Baseball was, and then moving on to Steady Hands, how they function as a band, because they're a very unique outfit also, and then also what Seán's day-to-day work at the moment entails with Two Roads Brewing. So it was an extremely interesting conversation, and Seán is just the nicest, most humblest guy who really has gone out of his way to help myself and a lot of friends. The first time I met Seán was when he was over with Modern Baseball in the Winter Passing. We're supporting them, and I was just handing out flyers after their gig to people because we had our own full band Anna's Anchor show a couple of weeks afterwards, so we're just flying for that, and I got to chat to Seán there. And then fast forward then a couple of months later when we were touring America ourselves, Seán helped put me in touch with people that hooked us up with a show in Philly, and he actually even played himself. So I'm eternally grateful for how above and beyond he's gone for us in the past and has continued to do so. So it was unbelievable to have him on, and I'm really grateful that he gave us his time, and I really hope you enjoy the conversation we had with Seán Huber from Roscommon, sort of. All right, Seán Huber, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Marty. It's great to talk to you.
Yeah, it's absolutely great to have you on this weird adventure that I'm currently on at the moment. I really appreciate you coming on. I suppose going straight into it, Seán, there's going to be no pleasantries because we're already talking off mic anyway. You just put out a new album with Steady Hands.
Yeah.
How has it been since you put it out? And to make it a bit of a double barrel question as well, I assume putting out the Steady Hands album has been extremely different to any of the work you've put out previously with Modern Baseball in terms of how it's been released. So what's it been like releasing an album on the side of things where you're not planning to go on tour for like forever?
It's been a cool experience, man. It all kind of worked out where, it was about time that we did a full length. It's crazy. Like, I've been doing this project for about 6 years now. And we did a string of EPs and eventually put out a collection of those, but it really meant a lot to get in the studio and finally do a proper full length. And it was kind of funny, like it all kind of happened right when Modern Baseball stopped. So I just kind of had all this time where I was just like straight up, had to find a new form of income, but also wanted to, make a switch in terms of my career musically. So it was actually a really kind of scary but exciting feeling, because it all kind of happened at once. So it was really nice to be able to put out the record. And for the first time, really knowing like kind of exactly what I wanted to do, what my plan was. And it's been really exciting because, instead of like, when you're in a band, a larger band like modern baseball, there's kind of a series of things that are expected when you make a record in terms of the press you do, the tours you do, all that kind of stuff. And for this, it was just literally like, I don't have to say yes to anything. I just pretty much take the opportunities as they come at my own pace, at our own pace. And that's just kind of been happening. It's funny, like, in terms of like touring, I'm slower than I've ever been in the last 5 or 6 years, but I've also played like the biggest steady hand shows we've ever played. So it's kind of worked out nicely like that.
Is it nice to, I suppose, having experienced everything that you have done with both modern baseball and steady hands, to be in a position where you can be like, okay, I'm going to say yes to this cool stuff, and I might say no to some of this other crap, because you're kind of like, I just want to, now that I don't have as much time to put towards a musical project, I'm just going to do the stuff that kind of makes me the happiest. Has that been the case?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the way I look at it is I was so incredibly fortunate with, all the opportunities that came with MoBo. I could say that I literally got the chance to tour and play shows with every one of my favorite bands, every one of the bands I grew up listening to. And that is not an exaggeration. There's like barely 1 or 2 bands I can even think about listening to that I didn't eventually get to play with. So, I got to do kind of cross everything off a bucket list in terms of what a punk musician could do. So now it's just kind of like everything else is bonus. So it's just been so much
on the
fun.
Victory lap.
Yeah. There's nothing we have to do, and just kind of like keeping it as comfortable as possible. And that's not to say like, touring is done for me. I don't think that in one bit, but it's just kind of doing things at a steady pace. No pun intended. It's just kind of made the whole, project and band so much more rewarding.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. And I guess that makes the whole thing a little bit more refreshing as well. So, not to jump too far ahead already, to cut back a little bit. Where are you actually from originally?
So I'm from New Jersey.
Okay, because I wasn't sure if it was Jersey or Maryland. I don't know why I had that in my head.
No, I think some of the other MoBo guys were from Maryland.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm from North Jersey. About 15 miles as the crow flies to Manhattan.
Okay.
So it's kind of Philly's funny. It seems like so many people that live in Philly didn't actually grow up here. They kind of like grew up in the burbs or grew up in South Jersey. And I don't fall into that case. I actually grew up in North Jersey. So, until I was 18, kind of the city that I was closest to was New York City. That's like where I went to see shows.
That's funny. And I never really had realized until I went to Jersey just like how close certain parts of it are to Philly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like pretty much on the border. What was your family like, I suppose, growing up, and did they help like push you towards music? Like, were you in a musical family?
No, not at all. Which is quite funny. Yeah, I mean, my mom, she when I was probably like I guess in grammar school, she went from being a dental hygienist to starting her own business as a muralist, and she did like faux finishing work as an artist. Class. Yeah, which was really cool. To have her own business in the in the 90s suburban New Jersey mom genre, and she was able to do really well with that. So, there was a little bit of art I grew up around, but yeah, there's really no one in my family that was a musician. It was just kind of something I found on my own. And I was lucky that even though they didn't quite understand it, they were definitely super, super supportive.
Like, how did you get in towards alternative music and all? Like, what was your entry point?
For me, it was just a lot of those records that came out in the mid 2000s. like with Offspring and Green Day and Rancid. My brother's a couple years older than me, and it's kind of funny that I got all my first records from him, and he has no interest in music whatsoever. I think it was just what was on MTV at the time or something, but basically, once my mom actually sat down and listened to the CDs he was buying, she took them all away. And I just kind of waited a few weeks and then stole them back without her noticing.
And you didn't get in shit for that?
No, they never. I guess she had forgotten about it at that point.
It's like classic youngest sibling or younger sibling getting away with stuff that the older one gets beat on for.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally. And yeah, and there was like, I was like really like oddly comfortable spending time alone when I was young. Not that I was antisocial or anything, but like, I just would spend like hours and hours watching television and just kind of like, I was really comfortable just like entertaining myself. So once I found music, it was kind of just my own solo journey in it. And, it was exciting. It was back in the day when you had to actually like work to find bands, It wasn't just like you were getting a new band shoved down your throat every other day. It was like you actually had to put the work in to find new music.
Yeah, like pre-internet or early internet stages.
Yeah, definitely the early, the crux of illegal downloading.
Yeah, so were you like on LimeWire or Napster?
It was Kazaa for me. And
Kazaa,
God,
okay.
I put so many viruses on my computer thanks to that.
Just fucking riddling the family computer with
yeah.
viruses.
Which I feel like when you're like 12, usually there's other things you're doing on your family's computer to produce viruses. But I was just trying to find records.
Did you start playing guitar first? Was that?
I started playing drums first.
Okay.
And I started really young playing drums, like school band. And that only lasted like 2 years before I quit because, when you start drums, you just start with, a snare drum and you learn how to read music, and it's not particularly fun at all. So I didn't last very long. And then, a couple years later when I got into punk music, I wanted to start playing, and I figured I'm all about the shortcuts. So since I had a little knowledge in one instrument, I thought I'd just go in with that.
You're like, I've played a little bit on one of these drums. Maybe I can do this times 5 and we'll be good to go.
Yeah, like I had one pair of drumsticks, so I was like, oh, that's half the battle. So I started that, but then I started guitar like a couple months later, honestly, which started as just like, I bought a guitar, so when a friend was over, could jam without them having to lug their equipment over, or get a ride from their mom. So that's when I first got a guitar because of that, and then I just kind of learned them both throughout the years. And
did you eventually like form a band with that friend or those mates?
Yeah, there was a series of bands I played in. Only one of which, this is through high school, ever played any shows. The problem was there was like, like I said, like kind of going on the journey on my own, like it was not cool to be in bands in my high school. There was like 5 of us that were even into like, alternative music. It was very much like a towny kind of good old boy football town.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So it was like, I gravitated towards some of the older kids because they were just the ones who were into music, and we barely even had enough people to start a real band, to be honest.
I think that's the way for a lot of people, and most times you're like majorly stuck for the drummer.
Yeah.
And like usually the one kid in the like town or village that can play drums is in like fucking 15 bands.
Yeah.
Is that the case for you? Were you in all the bands?
No, because there wasn't that many bands.
Okay.
There was like, we were the only one. So no one was fighting over me.
Okay.
But yeah,
did you play shows?
Yeah, I think I played actually 2 bands. I filled in for a band for a little while. But honestly, a band that I had that I'd never played shows with was Andrew, who plays piano in Steady Hands. He was like the first person I ever jammed with, which was kind of funny.
Okay.
Because when I bought drums, he bought a guitar. I guess I could consider that my first band was actually with him.
I suppose your family then, we should touch on it. Do you have some bit of a Irish heritage? We're kind of bending the rules having you on the podcast, but to be honest, like, I don't know, half of the Irish soccer team are from England, so I feel like if they can qualify to like line out for the Irish national team, I feel like you're pretty good to have on this podcast. So you do have some bit of Irish blood in you.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you just put an asterisk next to this podcast of least Irish person on it. Yeah, I mean, my family on my father's side is from French Park, which is in Roscommon.
Okay.
And I went there, just kind of background. I've just spent a lot of time in Ireland. I went there for the first time for a study abroad trip, and I was there for a summer when I was 20, and I just kind of
What college did you go
to? Dublin Business School.
Oh, okay.
It's just right down there downtown. It was a cool program. It was like all based around Irish studies for that summer, and it was the first time I left the country at all. And that's when I kind of started to meet people in the music scene. So I just kind of fell in love, and then that's what resulted in many, many trips back. But on that first trip, I got to go to Roscommon and kind of poke around the town and saw the street that my great grandmother lived on, and found a graveyard with a million of my relatives in from like the 1400s. That part of my family, the last name is Sharkey, and apparently you can throw a stone and hit a Sharkey out in Roscommon.
I've actually always been curious. So how did you figure out that that line of your family were like in that particular part of Roscommon town? Like, did your parents know, or did you have to do some research?
It's actually pretty well documented. My grandma was quite good at it. So she has kind of this book that was made probably like 20 years ago, and it kind of documents when everybody came over. So we kind of had a little bit of to go off of when I went there. It was funny. We hired a guy to drive us around for the day. His name was Potty. And he just kind of like,
classic.
Yeah, he was a real nice guy. And he just kind of, we gave him all the information we had, and, ended up just kind of like going to the town and like talking to the butcher, and the butcher explained to us like where the church would be. So we just kind of did a bit of detecting work once we were there.
How did you find Roscommon, out of curiosity? Because you've seen most of Ireland at this stage. So
yeah. I
was curious what you thought of it.
I mean, I thought it was a really nice little town. I think Galway is my favorite city in Europe. So it's got kind of that similar feel. Obviously, it's not as close to the water, but yeah, I only spent a short amount of time there, but you could feel it. You could feel the family.
Yeah, the Midlands are well, I don't know if some people would or wouldn't classify Roscommon as the Midlands, but some of those counties are super, super interesting. They're just completely surrounded by bogland. I've only played in Roscommon once, and I don't think I'll be going back playing there again. But
how was that gig?
It was just like, it was fine, but it was just in a bar that you could tell like they just wanted me to play Country Roads like 20 times back to back and just get the fuck out of there.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've literally played every inch of the country.
Yeah, well, I suppose going back to like sticking to just like doing the fun things that make you happy. I mean, I've probably learned that the hard way at this point. But and you've played in Ireland a lot as well. So has that been because of your background with the family, or just straight up falling in love with the country and the music scene in Ireland? Because I know you've toured with a lot of Irish bands back with Modern Baseball and a Steady Hands. Like, I've seen you play in Ireland like 3 or 4 times, I would say.
Mm-hmm. When I first came, I was there for a summer, so I really just kind of wanted to like immerse myself. And oddly enough, so the trip I went on, it was me and then I think like 13 women. I was the only guy on the trip, so like we became all very good friends, and it was really cool to get to hang out with that much female energy for a whole summer. But I wanted to kind of like, do my own thing here and there. So I just kind of started going to shows. And I mean, it's like Philly over there. I've always equated it. Like I met one person and I met the whole scene. And like 20 minutes later, I felt like, so I just kind of fell in love. And then I just was genuinely a big fan of so many of the bands coming out there. So it, was really motivating to try to get that back there as much as possible.
Did you went to some shows while you were in Ireland that first time as well?
Yes.
Who did you get to see?
I went to the first show I went to, I think it was Fibbers. And it was Ghost Inside played. Then I went to another show that was Starters actually played. So that's how I met those guys. And they were opening for Polar Bear Club.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, and I think there was one more like metal show that I just went to go. And I don't think I still listen to whoever I saw at that show.
Yeah. When did you find Chewing on Tinfoil? Because I know you toured with them with Modern Baseball, and I know you've played with Stu Daly loads as well.
Yeah, I've played with Stu a bunch, and Stu is part of my part of the Irish Steady Hands. I got the chance to play a full band show over there, and he played with me. Gig. I think he learned the songs better than I knew them. I was kind of doing a similar thing to you. I was just I was in film school at the time, so I wanted to film some interviews and like acoustic performances. So I was kind of running around doing that, and that's when I first met Stu. Just kind of hit him up online, became fast friends with him that way.
Nice. Just backtracking a tiny bit. When you finished high school, you went to film school then in Philly, did you? Is that right?
Yeah, that's initially what brought me to Philly. Pertinent information, my the other side of the family that's not connected to Ireland is from Philly.
Okay.
So when I turned 18, I kind of came, that was an excuse to come here and move to the city, and I started film school at that point.
Were you in any other bands in Philly, like when you first came, or how did you become a part of the music scene in Philly when you like moved to that new town?
Pretty quickly. Luckily I had one friend who came with me to Philly, who I was friends with in high school. He was in bands, so we just kind of, started a band right off the bat. And yeah, for the first couple of years of living in Philly, I played in a band that was kind of like more like rootsy rock and roll. I think I was like the punk drummer trying to make a band that sounded like the Killers play faster. Something like that. And then I did that.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, no, it was great. They were amazing. But I did that for the first couple of years. And we were definitely playing the clubs in Philly and like playing basement shows, but it was more of the like kind of frat party basement shows.
Okay.
It was happening while the Philly scene was really like bubbling. But we were not playing those cool basement shows. We were playing the like keg party basement shows, which was great at the time. But yeah, so I was doing that, and then shortly enough, I met the MoBo guys who were a couple years younger than me.
How did you meet them initially?
We met at there was like an open mic that the school that we all went to ran like once a week, and it was just kind of like my friend group was like all musicians, and we just kind of like centered around that. So we'd go once a week, and it would just kind of like we'd all go and like play our songs or like try new songs, and that was just kind of like how we'd start our weekend. We'd like all go there and then go elsewhere. So I think they showed up one day, and I thought they were really good, and they were like fresh into college.
Yeah.
So that, and I met them there and then started hanging out, and it was kind of like funny because it was just like hanging out with the young guys who I had to buy beer for because they weren't of age yet.
You were the old creepy guy.
Yeah, I was. But I got such a big kick out of it.
And did you start playing shows like pretty soon after that? I assume it was like local stuff.
Yeah, pretty soon after that, with those guys. And, like I said, I had been playing for a couple years with the other band. And then that's kind of also when Steady Hand started, when I started playing shows with that. So it all kind of happened at the same time.
I've always been kind of curious. What was it like being involved? Because I suppose, I don't know if it feels this way, let's say from your perspective, but from the outside looking in, like the Philly punk scene of like that period that we're talking about there just like seems or has always sounded like the best and most fucking together music scene that there has almost ever been. And the like Philly house show thing is just this absolutely legendary thing. And I guess, did it kind of feel like that being at the center of it, or did it just seem like totally normal? Because, like, let's say now, being from a different place and looking back on that period and thinking, like, I heard like you put on Menzingers in your basement and stuff, like that just seems just fucking insane from the outside looking in. So I guess, how did it feel being involved at the center of it?
Well, I mean, that's funny. I mean, yeah, it didn't. It was exciting, but I mean, it's definitely. I think it's become that of a legend. Just over the years.
Totally.
I don't think it ever was what people paint it as. I mean, it was absolutely wonderful, but I think it's just got built up this legend around it, which is pretty funny. The Menzingers never played in our basement. We had some cool bands,
Okay.
but
Sorry.
they were no. They were
Was it a Wonder Years?
no.
Okay, I'm gonna stop guessing or I'll sound like a fucking idiot.
No. This is exactly what I'm talking about. That's like such like an understandable like thing that people would be like, yeah, of course the Menzingers played in their basement. Like, why wouldn't they? But yeah, I mean, it was like at the time, it just felt like we were hanging out with our friends, and instead of going to college parties on the weekend, we were just throwing shows in our basement. And the crazy thing is, like, I think now, like at the time, I didn't see it going anywhere. I was just like, that's what I wanted to do on the weekends and playing in bands, and I love, like, it was just genuinely fun. So like, I think there's a lot of bands that may have moved to Philly to kind of like facilitate a career. But God, honestly, it was just like, it just happened. We were just hanging out with our friends, and that's what we like to do. And then, we started meeting touring bands, and so we wanted to make sure they were taken care of. So started putting on shows like that for them, and we were also like, it gets really really lame when you start dropping the term wave, but I felt like we were the second wave, like the Menzo crew. They'd kind of like been there before us, and we're starting to gain a lot of traction. And I felt like we were kind of the shit kicker college kids that were like doing our own thing. So I think like a lot of times they kind of morph that all together.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Yeah, because I totally had them morph together.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, it definitely happens. Well, it definitely happens in Ireland, and I've definitely seen it in a lot of other places where it's kind of like a music scene, I guess, kind of like starts off at a trough. Like there's nothing going on, and then there's kind of like a core group of people get together for the right reasons and start putting on shows, and kind of younger people see this and start to form their own bands, and like the whole thing kind of snowballs until it eventually reaches a critical mass point where then it kind of becomes a bit shit again, and then like people move on. The kind of core people, I don't know, for whatever reasons, they kind of stop playing, and then the whole thing kind of dies down, and then a scene usually goes to shit then again for a while, and there's nothing for, as crude as that sounds. Was that the kind of case when you landed on Philly, or has kind of always been kind of bubbling?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't think they're, everything's cyclical. I don't think it's like, the scene is any worse now. I think it's just, there's people who are my age when we were doing it are doing it now, yeah. It's like, I feel old as hell when I go to a DIY show now. But I mean, that's just how it comes, Yeah, it's so funny, like how I feel like, a lot of people like who come to Philly and like go to, do a music program at a college because they want to become a booking agent. So they start like booking basement shows. Like the first time I got like an advance email for a basement show, like I couldn't believe it. Because like that's the thing now. It's like that's what you like. You come and you want to do something, so you just start doing it. But yeah, like I think of when we were doing it, it's like there's no fucking advance email. It's just like show up at 8 and you'll probably go on at 11.
At some point, somebody will tell you to go downstairs.
Yeah, and I think the funny thing, as like an outside perspective, is you guys just it just seems so wild to you guys because none of you have basements.
Yeah, that's like totally blows my mind. Like having a show in a residential area in Ireland, just like I'm going to say almost doesn't ever happen because, well, we did have one like acoustic house show in my current house, and I played a house show at Craig Hewitt's, and he had a load of hardcore bands, but like it almost never happens, and I can't imagine how like you don't get noise complaints or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, it really is unbelievable. You know, I've definitely had my fair share of the cops showing up, but it really is just like there's this like this kind of mindset in Philly where like people just put up with it. It's like I think it's the cops are just their viewpoint is like they got worse things to worry about than
Yeah,
a bunch of kids with
sketchier things going on.
Yeah, so it's like a bunch of kids with like in a safe environment just having fun.
I will say one thing. Speaking about safe environments, though, my one experience of playing a Philly house show, which was amazing, and for someone starry-eyed looking at the Philly scene, that was like a dream come true. But holy shit, I was just thinking like, this is such a fucking fire hazard. Like, this is so sketchy. There's people hanging out of the walls. There is no exit.
I thought you were gonna say you were sketched out by the bodega we went to with the bulletproof glass.
That was fucking sketchy as well. Yeah. So that it's an off license, isn't it? You can describe it.
Yeah. So in Philly, that one's actually closed down. So Marty played.
Why is it closed down?
Yeah, you wonder why. So Marty played a house show. Was about a little over a year ago, and that was it was at my old house, which is funny. Like various younger people have moved into and like continue doing shows. But yeah, there's an off license like a couple blocks away, and it is sketchy, and it is closed down now because they were operating illegally.
And just the bulletproof glass and the like guy lifting up the hatch is pretty funny. Even fucking my like the car that I'd rented, like that was the first day of that run of shows, and it was the same day that I actually landed in America, and the trunk, I didn't realize it, but the trunk, like when you close it, sometimes this is on the rental car, it doesn't actually like it didn't shut and stay shut. It would just like pop back open. But like after I took my stuff out of the trunk and went into the house, just like put the trunk down and went back into the house, and then like 20 minutes later, someone came into the house and they're like, "Hey, who owns the fucking Toyota whatever with the trunk open at the back?" And I was like, "Oh fuck!" And then I like looked outside the house and there was just like about 10 people like dotted around the street, just fucking staring at the car. It was like, I'm sure if I left it that way for another 30 minutes, that car was not going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. I had my. I love Philadelphia, but I had my car windows smashed in New Year's Eve, so I can tell from experience.
Oh shit! Sorry to hear that.
But it's fun. Yeah, it's funny. That was kind of where that house is. It's not a place I live anymore because it was pretty sketchy.
Yeah. Was that the house that all of the MoBo guys lived in as well?
Yeah, at various times. We never all lived there together, but everybody's kind of cycled through that house.
And I suppose at what point then did MoBo start becoming a little bit more serious beyond just wanting to put on like shows for yourselves and your mates in the basement?
I mean, it happened pretty quick. I think it was like maybe a year or two into the band. We booked ourselves a full US tour with some help from our friends. And it was basically like the summer I graduated college. Like I graduated and then like a week later just jumped in the van. And that was the first time like we like, did the entire country and like saw that we had fans all over the place, which was pretty mind blowing to us. So I think that's kind of where the upward trajectory happened. And even before that, we were doing like weekend little runs that started to gain some traction.
That must have been a pretty cool experience for your first US tour to have like people coming out and being familiar with the music.
Yeah, it was wild. And like I'd done some touring with my old band before that. But definitely more of like your experience in Roscommon was my previous touring experience.
Well, I suppose at least that hardened you, and then you could even appreciate what was to come even more, I guess, seeing the other side of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Were you working then after you graduated college, or did you literally just go straight from that to being like, right, we're gonna fucking make a go of this and try and do the band full time?
I was working for a couple of years actually. Like I started working full time while I was still in college. And I was working for also a music nonprofit, but it was in the video field. So I was editing a documentary series. That Steady Hands ended up doing an episode of last year called Shaking Through. So I was like full time, video editor through the beginning of all modern baseball touring because the other guys still went to school. So we would kind of tour in between their school schedule, and I would just go back and forth to the office when I was home.
Was it frustrating having to try and juggle the school that the other guys were doing with the, like, I suppose, touring offers that were coming in?
Well, it
was pretty easy?
It was easy in some regard because it was it allowed me to work because I still very much enjoyed my job. But it's actually funny. So the second time I went to Ireland, I went over for a week or so and did some traveling and played some shows with Stu. During that trip, we had gotten our first offer to tour with the Wonder Years. And we were all set to do it. And then I think it was Jake from MoBo picked me up from the airport, and as we were driving home, explained to me that we weren't going to do the tour because they were going to go back to school instead. So I was pretty bummed. But then they ended up doing it anyway.
Did you have to convince them, or did they come around themselves?
They came around themselves. I didn't feel like that was my place since I had already graduated college. So yeah. I never had that issue of deciding whether or not to finish.
Shortly after that, then, I guess MoBo did become kind of a full-time thing, did it?
Yeah, slowly. I was really apprehensive to not have some kind of side work. But yeah, so even though MoBo was starting to do quite well, I always wanted to have kind of something else to do when I was home, just because I don't like sitting around, and I think I always thought it was kind of extremely important to have your finances situated and comfortable. So even like when MoBo literally finished our last tour and decided to not continue, straight up flew home, and then Monday morning was on Craigslist sending out job applications. It was wow. Serious.
I think one thing that definitely has kind of always blown my mind a little bit was kind of I would kind of have these milestones in mind, like man, if I was the same size as this band, then I could fucking do this full time, and that would be amazing. And then I might get to play with that band or a band of in the similar level and scene, and then you're chatting to them and they're like, yeah, I have to fucking go back to work now on Tuesday, man, when we fly in. I'm like, fuck, you're still doing this shit.
Yeah.
At what level does it stop?
It's wild, man. I mean, and the thing is again, I was insanely fortunate for what MoBo was able to accomplish and those years. But I live quite simply. It's not like I'm raising children on that salary.
Yeah,
I
totally
kept my cost of living quite low for the small amount of time where I was just touring.
And I guess it's one of those things as well, like as the shows get bigger, it's not a case that like all that money is going straight to like the four dudes in the band. It's like there's a lot more people that have to get paid along the way to make that like big show happen as well.
Oh yeah.
So it's not as simple as like you played this certain cap venue, you're making a fucking ball of money and you can quit the job.
Yeah, and I think it hurt, since our trajectory was pretty quick. I think it made it hurt more because you do like one tour and they're like, fuck, now we got to add another person for this next tour. Like it felt like every single tour we added someone. So
Yeah.
the way the pot at the end kind of grew quite slowly.
It's hard. Did you enjoy that juxtaposition of like coming back from playing like a big tour back to going straight back to work, or did you find that difficult?
No, I really enjoyed it. It just kind of like, makes you feel like a real human. Because touring's just so fucking wacky.
It's not reality.
Yeah.
Really.
So it like it's nice to get home and like, be around people who have no idea what you do. When you're on tour, or maybe don't even know that you're in a band. It's super refreshing to me. And like, I even when MoBo ended and I was just working at the bar, like I told no one for so long that I worked with what I did previously.
I was going to ask you that because that's something I actually feel like, or at least in the past, it's kind of a little bit different now because I'm working more in music, but I would always feel very uncomfortable telling people that I was playing in a band because it almost seems like, at least I'm coming at it from a very different level because I have absolutely 0% success compared to like what you did with MoBo. But it just feels like fucking, I don't know, like childish, like, yeah, I'm in a band, man.
Covers or originals.
Yeah. Would you try and avoid telling people that?
Oh yeah, completely. Just because like, yeah, I feel the same way you do. And, if I meet someone new, I want to genuinely have, like a real life experience with them, and not have them coming into it with any preconceived notions. Which has been really funny, like kind of transitioning now where I'm working full time again. And it's kind of, it will rarely come up. But I think that has a lot to do with, the fact that I work in the beverage industry, and a lot of the real diehard MoBo fans were a little bit younger than the people I deal with now.
Yeah, they're only starting to become of age now. I've always been curious to ask someone like yourself this question because I know I definitely have plenty of friends that share this experience as well. So it's maybe not just the fact that I'm just like such a fucking grumpy bastard, but maybe just me and all my friends are such grumpy bastards. But like, let's say even since starting at Ancestry, I've always been like, if I could get to this level, or if I could like tour Ireland, I would just be happy. I would be done. And then you kind of get there and the satisfaction, you almost don't get any satisfaction. And like, as soon as you hit that milestone, you're like, oh, but if I was at this level, like that would be amazing. Then I'd be set. And then you get to that one, and again, the satisfaction doesn't come at all. And I kind of wondered, are you ever at a point where you can be like, in the moment, be like, man, this is fucking awesome. I'm delighted. I'm happy with that. Was it that way for you, or were you the grumpy bastard like me and being like, damn, I wish we were at this level?
No, I mean, I like since I said, when we started, I didn't expect anything out of it. I took everything that came as a bonus. And it's almost more of the opposite, where like you get to a level, and like we got to a level where we were, the first band of 3 playing small arenas, and like you're just like, half of you is like, this is insane, but the other half is like, when you're doing it every day, you're like, fuck, I miss playing clubs. Like I was playing clubs to our fans and our friends, and like, not having to play in front of, thousands of people who might not necessarily be there to see you. And there's like all the added pressure that comes with that, where it's just like, oh man, I didn't think this was going anywhere. I was having more fun sometimes.
Now that kind of enough time has, or well, there's been a little bit of time since you finished up with MoBo. Do you kind of do you look back on it in a different light now, or is it still very much kind of the same as when you're in it?
I don't think much has changed. I don't think I really have any regrets about what we did. I don't think I really would have particularly changed anything about it. I think it was more so like, I didn't know what to expect when we decided to end it, what it was going to be like. And there's definitely a fear in that, but it definitely I think my life has only improved since. So I think fondly about the things I was able to do.
This is totally a random question, but it's always piqued my curiosity. Most of the times I've like watched headline shows of you just on YouTube and stuff, like big gigs, you never had a drum riser. Was there any thought behind that?
Oh
Was there some deliberate reason?
God, that's the best question anybody's ever asked me.
I know that's such a nerdy question, but I'd see you play these huge rooms. I'm like,
people. I mean, my cool answer is like, because like drum risers are whack for some reason. But that's not that at all. I just hate drum risers. They shake, and it's just really uncomfortable being like slightly raised when you're sitting down. And yeah, so many of them are just loose. So you're trying to play and all your shit's just shaking the whole time. So we like literally had it on our tech rider that like a drum riser. And like I'd come into venues and they always have one there. And I'd have to like ask this poor loading dude to like move it. And I would always like so apologetic.
Hey man, you know the thing that you just spent like half an hour taking out of storage and breaking your back, bringing it up the stairs. Can you put that back?
Oh, dude. And there's been festivals and stuff where these are the worst when they're a quick changeover. So like they'll have like 3 drum risers. One's on stage and 2 are backstage, and they're on wheels. And you got to like set up your drums, and like as soon as you're like ready to, like one band finishes, they like take that drum riser and like wheel it off and then like wheel you on. And it just has these little locks on the wheels, and it's like the most uncomfortable thing in the world. And you have to do it. Like they're like super strict about it. But yeah, the drum riser thing was just, I hated it.
That's hilarious. And well, I'm not a drummer, so I wouldn't have experienced a shaky drum riser. Was it hard to like adapt to that level up in terms of professionalism that comes with some of the bigger shows?
No, I mean, it happened quickly, but I feel like, we always kind of had like everybody who we worked with was genuinely a friend of ours. So like our whole crew is all just friends who kind of grew into their roles. So you always had that. And then also we just got really lucky. Like, when the Wonder Years first took us out, they like just taught us so much and were like the most genuine people. And like have since gone to weddings and stuff like that. And we just really lucked out that there was like I've talked to bands who've been like kicked off tours because they were like outdrawing the headlining band or something like that. So I've heard these horror stories, but like we didn't experience anything like that.
And then moving on from modern baseball, then that's kind of, you touched on earlier when you really started working on a full length with Steady Hands. I suppose, how has that been? Because I guess the lineup of Steady Hands has kind of always changed, and to me it's kind of seemed like a kind of almost like this revolving circle of friends and different creative people. So I suppose, how rewarding was it to work on a full length with a group of your pals?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's always like that, and that was purposeful at the beginning, just because I genuinely like, I always had the complex of like I couldn't believe that people were willing to add their talents to something I created. So I always kind of just, since I had so many musical friends, I wanted to get as many people involved as possible. And there's all these benefits to that, but also, at one point there was like 9 of us. So it got logistically difficult. And I don't think it made us sound any better. I think it just made us sound louder. But for this record, we made it just the core 5 of us, of the same guys. So it was really, really cool to actually get in there. And, I made the decision before this record that, I'm sorry if this you're the wrong person to be talking to, but I wanted to stop playing acoustic guitar.
I can see where you're coming from. I mean, it gets fucking
Yeah,
lonely.
it's getting really lonely, and
There's only so much you can do
yeah,
with it as well.
and I just there's definitely like with Steady Hands, I was definitely influenced a bunch by like the Frank Turners of the world and the Dave Haas's and punk dude kind of turned folky.
Hmm.
But at a certain point, I just got kind of sick of being attached to that, and I just didn't want to be the front man who plays solo sometimes and sometimes with a band up there with an acoustic guitar. Just because I think there's enough good people doing that. So I made the conscious decision to start playing electric guitar, which was funny because I really haven't played much electric guitar since I was like in high school, just like playing along to punk records. So it was really refreshing. And, when we used to record Steady Hands and we'd have so many different people in this like huge arrangement, it was really difficult to mix. And, you kind of like had to figure out space for everything and things just kind of got lost. So it was really cool to get in there and like record a bunch of guitar and then like put on headphones and like I'm in the right ear and Will's in the left ear, and I can actually hear what I'm doing instead of like,
Mm.
I think what I more so did was add enough people that you didn't actually hear what I was doing.
Well, that's in Bruce Springsteen's biography. He talks about that I think it was when they were recording Born to Run that he was just like kind of almost achieving a sound that like he basically wanted everything turned up. It was like never satisfied until he kind of realized like there is literally only so many frequencies that the human ear can decipher, and it's like as a musician it's like you have you can choose which instruments will occupy which frequencies, but at the end of the day like you reach a certain point where stuff is just going to start clashing and taken away from another part.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've worked with the same producer for many years now, and God, him and my engineer were just so happy. It was like they probably should have told us to do this years ago, but didn't feel comfortable doing so. So it ended up being really nice.
It was the Weathervane studio that you recorded the album in,
Yeah,
was
yeah.
it? Did working on the video stuff with them kind of, do you think it helped your own knowledge in knowing what you kind of wanted, or in terms of like songwriting, did it help you like adapt your songwriting towards what the recording would sound like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely I'm in no way an audio person, but it was definitely a nice crash course in that. And it just made us super, super comfortable in that studio. Um, and super comfortable with the people we were working with. So it's been kind of like amazing to have people that, I trust enough to make those decisions that I can't. And I fully trust them. So it's been really cool. Where I was doing the video stuff in the studio before I ever recorded there. So it was just kind of like a milestone to even be able to record one song there. And then, flash forward, we're, making a whole record there. It was pretty amazing.
It looks like an amazing studio.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
So I know now you work with Two Roads Brewing, but did you consciously step away from video work, or was it just a case that the road just naturally went down the road you're on at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to film, I very much enjoyed it while I was doing it. And I pretty much had my dream job in terms of, being able to work on a non-profit music documentary series. It doesn't really get much cooler than that for a video editor who's also into music. But, it was more so like video editing is pretty grinding. And it's just a lot of hours, by yourself in a room staring at a computer, or sleeping overnight in that office and like just like burning out. So for a while it was nice because I could kind of leave it, and go tour and come back refreshed. But after a certain number of years, I kind of felt like since I was not doing it full time at a certain point, I felt like I was kind of getting left behind by the way the industry was going. Um, and I feel like it's really competitive. So I feel like there was a lot of like, kids starting college who kind of, with all this fancy new equipment that I haven't used yet, kind of like, ahead of where I was at. So
Interesting.
yeah, so it was a little bit of a conscious decision to kind of slow down with it. And then, in addition to that, it was just, I really enjoyed doing it, but I also think I better suited to do something where I'm interacting with people on a daily basis, rather than just sitting there as a one-man operation.
And tell me about your current job then with Two Roads. I suppose maybe just let us know what the company is and what you do with them.
Yeah. So now we were joking before we started, as I picked one of 3 available retired punk jobs, between beer industry, the tattoo industry, or the barbershop industry.
Shout out Rob.
Shout out Rob Flynn. But yeah, I mean, I was always a big fan of craft beer, and when I did travel for touring, I made it a point to visit a lot of breweries and try a lot of different beers. And it was a really cool kind of thing I did, where I was always very public about my interest in craft beer. So I would be in a lot of cities and just kind of would meet someone at the show, and they'd just be like, yo, you got to come across the street and like try this beer. So I ended up just kind of like getting to know a bunch of strangers who came to MoBo shows, which was kind of cool. A way to get from being stuck behind stage. So I was always interested in it. And then, when touring slowed down, I started working at like a bar, bottle shop, started meeting more people in the industry, and then eventually fell into the position with Two Roads, which is a craft brewery out of Connecticut. And I'm the Pennsylvania sales rep, which is basically like, it's normal selling, but also I run events, I do tastings, I do beer dinners. It's kind of like a different thing every day, which is pretty exciting.
I listened to a podcast that the master brewer did just before this, and I think that you also brew like non-Two Roads stuff there as well. I forget what the correct word is.
That's super rad. Yeah, we shout out, that's Phil Markowski, who is our head brewer, but we do contract brewing. So basically, other breweries will come to us and give us their recipe, their ingredients, and we'll brew the beer for them. For some breweries that are smaller and can't meet their necessary operations, and we've that used to be a hush hush thing in the beer industry. It's kind of like, you didn't really want to talk about it.
Yeah, kind of like illegitimizes the craft side of it, I guess. Or at least people used to think that way.
And there was a problem with the quality wouldn't be up to par a lot of times when you like went from making your own beer to having someone else produce it for you. So we took it really seriously, and we made a very conscious effort to kind of remove the stigma out of contract brewing. So we brew for a bunch of breweries. Primarily we do Evil Twin, we do Lawson's, we do Stillwater, which are some of the bigger ones, as well as a number of smaller breweries. And we're actually the first brewery that they will put on the side of their can, like proudly brewed in Stratford, Connecticut. So it's kind of taken that whole veil off of it. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome to be at the front of like changing a mindset.
Yeah,
like
it feels pretty punk.
Yeah.
It's much more like community oriented, I think, which is a really cool thing. And people will know us just from
Do you sell the contracted beer?
No, which is quite funny. Just to get nerdy, there's a beer called Sip of Sunshine we make by Lawson's Finest, which a lot of people know of our brewery because of that beer. And it recently started being sold in Philadelphia. And I was just fielding calls from people who knew that we made it, trying to figure out how to get it. And I had to kind of be like, I'm going to be nice and tell you how you can get it, but I really shouldn't, because that's my competitor now.
You'll have to get someone off your turf.
Yeah, a little bit.
Staying on the topic of alcoholic beverages, anyone that follows you on social media could quickly tell you seem to have a fascination with tiki, anything tiki.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? And what is it?
Tiki, I mean, basically there's this whole movement called Polynesian pop. And it started in the 30s by this gentleman called Don the Beachcomber, who opened up the first what's considered tiki bar. And it was basically this idea of escapism and kind of designing bars and designing exotic cocktails that are supposed to put you in a different place. Um, and it was a really big boom in the 40s, 50s, and then really died off. Um, and I became aware of it also from touring. Is when we were on tour with the guys in Say Anything. Um, they're pretty big fans of it, so they started taking us to tiki bars on that tour. And I kind of figured out that, like, oddly, in the touring punk scene, there's like a bunch of people who are super into this, who have this little small community. And like, because we all are afforded the ability to travel, we get to visit a lot of these bars. So I was able to build one in my house, that I take pretty seriously.
In your
In my
basement?
basement, yeah. My wife, when we decided to do it, she really didn't know what she was in for, in terms of the commitment I've put towards it. But it's just, for me, it's such a small niche thing that, you know, finding tiki bars and finding recipes that were lost to time, and finding these people in the tiki world, it's still kind of difficult. It's not like it's that publicized. Even though with the internet it's grown, but it's kind of the only thing that makes
Hmm.
me feel like I did when I was first discovering punk bands, and had to like
Okay.
seek out bands. Um,
Yeah.
Now for me, it's just like seeking out decor, seeking out mugs, seeking out recipes. Um, it's a rewarding hobby because there's an actual chase to it.
That's awesome. I never would have drawn those parallels just from the outside looking in. That's pretty cool. Where's been, other than obviously your own one, where's been the best tiki bar you've been to?
Um, I mean, the West Coast is really spoiled. There's some big ones out there: Smuggler's Cove, False Idol. I've really enjoyed. There's one me and my wife go to every year called the Mai Kai down in Florida. That's kind of one of they call it a Polynesian temple, tiki temple. It's quite an impressive building. Um, and it's been kind of unfortunate. The East Coast is lacking a bit in tiki bars, so they're slowly starting to open. And I've been traveling to visit, but um, I'm kind of jealous. I wish I was into this long enough in my touring career that I could have put more work in on the West Coast.
Are there any in Europe or
Yeah,
is
yeah. There's a number in Europe. There's a couple in London. There's a lot of Trader Vic's, which is it's a chain, that has a lot of
okay?
locations. There's some in Germany. Um, I don't think there's any in Ireland. I think just everything about it is just so painfully on the opposite side of the spectrum of what is Irish. It would just be,
Yeah.
you'd have to be handed sunscreen when you walk in.
Do you like Irish bars abroad or do you hate them? Because the Irish bars fascinate me, as someone who even like I do actually drink now, but I didn't drink for like 6 or 7 years, and like every fucking town in the world has an Irish bar. Like even the last, I forget the name of the town, but the last town, when I say town, like village on the way up to Everest Base Camp, like even that has an Irish bar, and like some of them are genuinely you would feel like you'd be back in home in Ireland, and then the vast majority of them you're like, this actually has nothing Irish in it whatsoever other than the fucking shamrock and the fake Irish name on the thing. Do you enjoy going to Irish bars abroad, or are you just like, oh, this is so fucking
Yeah,
plastic?
no, I avoid them like the plague. It's funny, like, I mean, you know how it is in America. Everybody wants to claim Irish, which must be
Yeah.
weird for you. But like, I mean, if you think they're bad in Europe, like, you go to like an Irish pub in New Jersey, and like there's like club music playing, in Philly too. I mean, like, I'm not gonna name any bars because it's currently my livelihood, but um, it's rough, man. It's just so funny that like there's not a direct correlation. Like, I do quite enjoy Ireland, but it doesn't necessarily want to hang out at an Irish pub in the States.
I can totally understand that and appreciate that.
And we actually we
So
have I could add one thing. We have a thing in Philadelphia called the Aaron Express. And it's a couple weekends in March, and it's like they have like a bus that just wheels you from like Irish pub to Irish pub, and it's just the worst fucking drunk college fratty shit ever.
That just sounds like that episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia when they have the paddy
That's
wagon.
exactly what it is. It's that's based in reality. It's just so crazy. It's disgusting. It's like, you know, what at SantaCon. It's the same shit. It's just an excuse for everybody to get blackout drunk midday. All thanks to you guys.
We do our best. I don't know if it's thanks to us, because then you see, like, you go into one and the person that runs it, I don't know, is like some fucking, I don't know, a guy from Russia or something. It's just like, just cashing in on the names. Sometimes I'm like, God damn it, we should have the brains to be doing this stuff ourselves and bringing the money back to Ireland, putting it back into the country.
I mean, actually, with all this shit I've been talking, there is a good one in my neighborhood called the Black Taxi, and a fella named Aiden runs it, and he's right off the boat, and he's quite a sweetheart. So there is a couple good ones.
So a final question. It's going to be a hard one. If you're to pick one highlight from everything that you've done so far, be it musically or in all your creative endeavors, what would it be?
Oh man, I think I'm just gonna I'll try to pick one, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna be lazy and not say, you know, that there's a particularly best one.
Yeah, I'm really putting you on the spot. But I like making people feel uncomfortable.
No, I mean, there's the one that I would always go to. We got to go to Australia a couple times with MoBo, and there was one time that we got to go to Tasmania. And we actually spent New Year's Eve in Tasmania. And it was really cool. Like the show was great, and it was like really wild. And I remember I was texting my wife, who was in Philly, and I was asking her what time she was going to head over to our friend's house for the New Year's party. And I was a full day, like, incorrect in my timing. She was a day further behind me than I thought. So I mean, it was just like such a weird thing, that it literally could, you know, playing in a punk band could take you that far. We were literally like days apart.
Just like, how the fuck did we get here? Literally. That's amazing. Well, Seán, thank you so much. I also want to say as well, thank you for taking such an interest in Irish bands as well, because I feel like a lot of the time so many awesome Irish bands get overlooked, and you've definitely helped out a lot in terms of getting the word out for a bunch of Irish bands, and it's a very rare thing. So not just my own, like, there's been a bunch of bands that really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, anything I've tried to do to help, I feel like has been repaid to me tenfold by everybody out there. So I feel more fortunate just to kind of fallen into this, and, you know, it's not really even a conscious thing I've set out to do. It's just, you know, I want to see people I'm friends with and people I'm genuinely fans of become successful. So I feel like it's the least I can do. And, you know, and then now I'm honorarily on your Irish podcast.
There you go. Seán Huber from Roscommon, ladies and gentlemen.
We sat around on plastic chairs before a night on home, as distant noise filled the air. Aluminium lined my throat in the biggest field, where the drink was only a scapegoat. The drink was only a scapegoat. We could leave this all behind. We could leave this all behind. We sat around on plastic chairs. I thought I felt at home, when presence was a distant care. Flashing lights and billowing smoke, we all gathered there to feel a little bit of hope, to feel a little could leave this all behind. We could leave this all behind. We could leave this all behind. We could leave this all behind.